When you sign up to do YouTube, nobody tells you that you're gonna have to do a course in lighting as well. Not only is it about being like lit enough, but it's about the temperature of the lighting, and because I use natural light, I'm relying heavily on the sun and its whims. And today's one of those days where it is as sunny as it is cloudy, so the sun is constantly coming out from behind the clouds and altering the lighting, or the tone of the lighting, quite significantly. But today we have a book haul. I'm hauling 15 books, I think it's 15, that I have collected over the past couple of months. So this is literally all the books I've bought in 2025. 15 is a lot. Some of these are charity shop finds. I did have a book voucher from Christmas that I spent in a bookstore, and I also did a big order online as a gift to myself for 3k. We've got a new release, we've got some non-fiction that my therapist recommended, fantasy book that someone else said was a good idea if you are mourning The Name of the Wind, which I certainly am. There are special circumstances, but going forward I'm hoping not to be buying as many books, and I have no need. I really want to be focusing on my physical TBR, and I feel kind of comfortable in doing so. Having said that, we are going to haul some books. The first book was actually a gift, and it was from Lucy. She gave me A Court That Is Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark. This is a romantasy book that she gifted to me for hitting 3k. This was so generous of her. It was really, really kind. Yeah, I just adore Lucy, and I'd actually been speaking to her about how excited I was to get to this book. It was on my wish list. I wasn't dropping any hints whatsoever, and I freaked out actually after she bought it for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope you didn't get this off our conversation, you know. I hope you didn't see that as me begging, because I honestly like had no idea she was going to get me a gift for 3k. But it was absolutely lovely that she did, obviously. And like I said, I've been so excited for this book. This is meant to be as close to ACOTAR as you can get, and ACOTAR is my favorite fantasy series. And I know that comparisons like that are like, they're not great. They're really unhelpful sometimes. I just want like a fantasy series and romantasy series that I'm going to get obsessed with. I want a silly fun time, basically, and I'm told this is what you get from this. So I'm not really certain what this is about. Oh my gosh, we have fan art. I think the general idea is this girl is on the run, meets these people in the woods, and they're kind of like a Robin Hood and his merry gang, you know, that kind of thing. His merry men even. The leader of that is the love interest, but he's kind of morally grey, or like he might be after, I don't know. I think it's kind of like an enemies to lovers, or like a reluctant allies to lovers, whatever it may be. I'm sure it's way more complex than that, and this does have fae, of course, because what's the point of reading fantasy if there's no fae? So excited for that. That will definitely be the next book I pick up when I'm in the mood for starting a new fantasy series. So then I went to the bookstore. I had a gift voucher. My mum actually gave my brother and I gift vouchers for a bookstore, and she also gave us a voucher for coffee and cake. So we'd do this like day out at the bookstore. We'd choose our books, and then we'd sit down and have coffee and cake together. It was such a sweet idea, and honestly like one of my favorite gifts I received, and also one of my brother's favorite gifts they received as well, because it's such a nice idea to kind of gift a day in having given a solid gift. If you heard a sneeze, that was my little cat. You okay, Winwan? I think he's good. We've lost the sun, but that's probably better. So I went in there and I had 2 books on my radar that I really wanted to get, but this bookstore is... There's many a time I go in there on the search for something and they never ever have it, so I was kind of expecting not to find these. In fact, the first book that I did pick up, this is Real Estate by Deborah Levy. This is the 3rd book in a non-fiction trilogy of books. This living autobiography series... Winston, bless you! This living autobiography series by this author. So I went to the biography section, the non-fiction section, and I went to L for Levy, and I found books 1 and 2 but not book 3, and I was like, that's great, because I read books 1 and 2 and I own books 1 and 2. Searched around the whole store, and on this random table, like the other side of this store, it's a big shop, they had tons of these copies. I did find it eventually, but it was difficult to get, and I didn't think I was going to be coming out the store with it. This was the only copy that wasn't damaged, and I'm really, really fussy. I'm this sort of person, I actually don't know whether anybody else is like this, but I will pick up every single copy of the book and examine like the spine and the pages and the corners and everything like that to check if it's like absolutely flawless, and that is the book that I'm taking home with me. So we did that, and we did successfully find a copy of Real Estate. I love the first 2 books in this series. They are fantastic. We have Things I Don't Want to Know and The Cost of Living. I think I minorly preferred Things I Don't Want to Know, but both books were 4-star reads and touched on so many interesting, important themes. The first one was very focused on Levy's childhood and her love of writing, and the second one was much more about her love of writing competing with her role as a wife and as a mother. This 3rd book, I think, takes inspiration from, it doesn't actually say here, but I think it takes inspiration from A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, in terms of saying that like a woman, in order to write and be creative, she needs a space of her own, and it's about the importance of home and lack of one. Your way of life, your creativity, but also your vocation relies on that thing, that like the essence of the home and the space, the physical space of home. So really, really excited for this. I'm also really excited to round off the trilogy finally, because I've been reading them for a couple of years. And then the other book that I went in there thinking I would get is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and they thankfully had many copies of this. I've read Rebecca, I read it during school, I studied it, and I had the most hideous copy. I'll put the picture on the screen, but mine was all torn up and the pages were orange and everything. That just was a disaster. I've been collecting du Maurier's work in the Virago modern classics, like the ones with the green spine, and I have, I think, 4 of her books now, including this one. So I was really excited to be able to find this edition. The reason why I wanted to purchase this book is because I want to read it for a video. I want to reread it for a video. You'll have to wait and see what that is, but I'm hoping to get to it probably, I'm thinking like October, November, maybe even earlier than that, perhaps a September read. But either way, this is a gothic classic. You can't go wrong with Rebecca. I remember enjoying it at the time, but I did find that I was perhaps too young for it, so we'll see how I get on with this. But this is just a beautiful, beautiful edition. Like, look at the gold. Amazing. Right, this is super duper exciting. This next stack of books takes a big part of my pile I had over here, but they're books that I am so excited for, and there's not too many of them, there's 3 of them, but they're just very, very chunky books. So as a gift to myself for hitting 3k, I bought the final books in the Throne of Glass series. That doesn't seem like a lot, except for the fact that I'm purchasing the American edition, so they're very expensive. There's limited places you can get them in the UK. I bought these actually off Books Please. I'll have their website linked down below. You can buy American editions and they ship within the UK. Quite inexpensive shipping price, I believe, and it's definitely worth, you know, like bulk buying books to pay just like that flat fee for shipping. So I bought the last 3 books in the Throne of Glass series: Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, Kingdom of Ash. This one is literally like the size of my head. Yeah, so I've been wanting these because I want to finish the series. I've been buddy reading the series with Lucy, the same Lucy from before. I've read The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, but I need to get to the last 2 books in the series. We are thinking of doing the tandem, so reading Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn together. But yeah, if you didn't know about the series already, it is a, what starts off as YA, kind of goes into new adult fantasy series that's very, very beloved by many, many people on here and in the real world as well, not just in the internet world. It's massive, as you can tell. There are 8 books, I believe. The character development, the character growth, the cast of characters, like the found family aspect is so beautiful, and I'm so thankful to have my dream editions of this series. I love the US paperbacks. I just think A, they're so much more comfortable to read from because they're so floppy, they lie flat, and B, I just think the covers are beautiful and definitely trump the new UK editions in my eyes. So excited to own these. On Vinted, I found myself a copy of Acts of Desperation by Nolan. If you're of the channel, you know this is one of my favourite books that I read last year. I actually think I originally gave this 4 stars and I bumped it up to 4.5, and it did make it on my top 10 list, but only because I forgot Swift and Saddle. So this is actually book number 11 of my top favourite books of 2024. Nevertheless, I absolutely adored this. It is following a very, very toxic relationship our main character experiences in her early 20s, and how that kind of shapes and shifts her life and alters her mental health in a way that's quite detrimental to her person. There is so much hope in this book. There's so much light in the ending. The experience that was captured and the way it was written and delivered. As a reader, you can look at her situation and be like, open your eyes, wake up to the abuse that you're experiencing, but also being able to like empathize with her, that knowing that in that situation it is difficult to understand what is happening and how life could be so much freer outside of this thing that's kind of boxing you in and constraining you to this suffering. And despite the scariness of it all, there is hope outside. There is light and hope at the other end. So I was really, really keen to own a copy of this book, seeing as I read it on Kindle, and I'm so glad I found it on Vinted. I also bought this from the Book Fairy. I think her Vinted is Amelia Beth, but the Book Fairy on Instagram, she also watches the channel here sometimes as well, so hi if you're watching. I said in my little review, I was like on Vinted, I was like, I feel like I've made a friend in this purchase, because she was just so lovely, and I had problems with my account, and yeah, she was so accommodating in that. So not only did I get a book, but I also got a lovely new Instagram mutual and viewer of the channel as well. Onyx Storm, of course we had to pre-order Onyx Storm. 3rd book in the Empyrean series. I've read all the books in this one is no exception. I finished it at the end of last month, got so many tabs. I really enjoyed this. I'm so glad I started to pre-order it, because there was so much hype and excitement for this book and this series surrounding this book's release. Such an exciting time to be a book lover and to be a lover of this series, for it to be a series that I was up to date on, to the point where I actually could pre-order the 3rd book. I just loved the thrill of purchasing this book and starting this book with everybody on January 21st. The actual contents of the book I feel like came secondary to that, which is kind of interesting, but still 4.5 stars, such a good read. I probably am a bit generous with this series. I think I said in my review, like technically I don't think the series is that fantastic, but it's just so much fun and I can't argue with that, so very happy to own that. Also my favourite cover in the series so far. I think this is so beautiful with the black and the silver and this kind of sheen they've managed to put on there. In the charity shop I found a copy of Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck, I don't know how to say her name. This is the winner of the International Booker Prize 2024. Often the Booker Prizes, or the international bookers, the non-international bookers, don't massively interest me, but we've had two, the Booker and the International Booker of 2024, I was like really fascinated by. So the Booker was Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which the concept was incredible, but I definitely found faults in that one. I did read that one and I found faults in it, but I was really drawn in by the kind of idea of it. Same with Kairos. I think this sounds fantastic and something that is right up my alley. Berlin, 11th of July 1986. They meet by chance on a bus. She is a young student, he is older and married. Theirs is an intense and sudden attraction, fueled by a shared passion for music and art, and heightened by the secrecy they must maintain. But when she portrays him with a colleague, the relationship takes a darker turn, just as the GDR begins to crumble, ushering in a new era whose great gains also involve profound loss. So we have a very messy, complicated situation here. Very 21st century dynamics going on here. This is very 2024. I hate affairs and cheating with everything within me, but I find reading about them really fascinating. The way that these people are brought to a level that's like, it's so human, but it's also so pathetic. This massive thing that grows so out of control and ruins so many people's lives all over your usually a physical whim, rarely even like an intellectual one. Yeah, I just think this will be a fun time. So excited for Kairos and excited to see what I think of such a well-acclaimed novel. I also thought the author and the translator, I should actually say the translator, Michael Hoffman, I thought they seemed so lovely. They both like collected the award together. I watched the ceremony and they seemed very deserving just out of like how humble they were, if anything. Madonna in a Fur Coat, this is a book that I have read. This is a modern classic by this author whose name I never pronounce because I don't know how to. This was taking the internet by storm. I feel like the cover was just everywhere. It still is everywhere actually. It kept being put on my radar because of the cover, but then when I found out what it was about, I was like, this is going to be something I love, because it was a book that I thought would be full of yearning and heartache, but I found that actually the book was slightly less impressive than I thought it might have been, but still a really solid 4-star read, and I would still recommend this. It's basically about this relationship that's documented in a diary between this man and this woman. They never kind of like amount to anything. It's a very, very tragic story, but also very beautifully written and definitely worth the read, I'd say, if you're at all interested in it, and you can come to your own conclusions, because there are so many 5-star reviews out of that book. Just for me, I didn't feel like it had enough depth or nuance to get there. Right, book that my therapist recommended, we have None Like Him by Jen Wilkin. 10 Ways God is Different from Us, and why that is a good thing. I don't know how much I want to explain why the therapist thought this book would be good for me, but basically it's the idea that in our lives there are things that we are directly responsible for and within our control. So things like whether you have a shower in the morning, or my therapist gave the example of like getting to work on time or things like that. And then there are things that are completely out of your control. So the way that another person acts like on the street, or the way that someone treats you in potentially a negative way. And then there are the things in between that are like people who are very close to you, so a lover or a friend or a family member, and that responsibility you feel in order to help them sometimes. I feel like that greatly. I'm definitely like a lover to my core. I feel this need to assist the people in my life, which is a wonderful thing obviously, but it's also can be quite detrimental to myself, because the fact that these people can usually handle these things by themselves. You're allowed to offer a helping hand, but you don't need to take on the responsibility of their stress and their worry over this burden and take it on as your own, because I also am definitely an empath, and I feel like that is not always a good thing. It definitely has its merits, but it also definitely has its negatives as well. So anyway, regardless to say, she said this is great because it tells you like there are things that are out of our control that we're allowed to support someone, whether you are praying over them, whether you are donating money to a cause or campaigning in it or putting up posters or whatever it may be. You also have to let God do his thing. I need to learn to do that. We also have another Christian nonfiction. This is Winning the War in Your Mind. Change your thinking, change your life. This sounds so self-helpy. I don't know how to say this author's name either. Craig something. Everything will be listed down below, like I said. I saw some quotes about this and I thought this sounded incredible, because it's basically about how your brain can sometimes be your own worst enemy, and it's not ideal. We've all tried to think our way out of bad habits, unhealthy thought patterns, only to find ourselves stuck with an out-of-control mind and off-track daily life. He offers practical advice and biblical insight that will lead to a brighter, healthier future. Drawing on scripture and the latest findings of brain science, he lays out strategies that will free you from the grip of destructive thinking and enable you to live the life of joy and peace that God intended you to live. As a Christian, you are obviously always living for the future, because the best is yet to come, but I want to experience joy within the present as well. That is something I've been kind of battling with, trusting that you can have something good within this lifetime. Like, yes, in heaven all the tears will be taken away, all the pain. Right now you can make something good of your life as well. So I feel like this is going to be elbow the heater. I feel like this is going to be great in kind of understanding myself better and separating the kind of chemical science of my brain from the practicalities of like what I can do in everyday life to improve my life. This is kind of fun. It's like something that's been kind of weighing on me a little bit, just because I feel like my brain is not the kindest to me always, and I've definitely kind of felt that over the past couple of years. Learn how your brain works and see how to rewire it. Identify the lies your enemy wants to believe. Recognize and short circuit your mental triggers for destructive thinking. See how prayer and praise will transform your mind to develop practices that allow God's thoughts to shape your thoughts. God has something better for your life than your old ways of thinking. It's time to change your mind so that God can change your life. I'm really excited about this actually. It actually is kind of like a workbook as well. That's fun. Anyways, I'm gonna see how I find this. I don't know anything about this author, and I'm always wary going into Christian nonfiction because, you know, you don't know like how biblical this actually is. I can see even just from flicking through it, there are a lot of references to both science studies as well as biblical truths. I'll let you know how I get on with that one. It might be a miss, but I thought it was worth giving it a go. The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is a really famous fantasy novel. I've had this on my list for many years, but I put off getting it just because, you know, there's so many books to read and I don't need to be adding new books to my collection. I did know that at one point in my life I wanted to get to this one. So when I saw it in this like really cheap store where they have books for like £3 or something, it's one of those stores that sells like bulk stock or whatever it may be, I don't know. But basically new books for very cheap prices. I think their hardcovers are £5. Plus, I had just heard a couple of different sources so that if you like The Name of the Wind, you're probably going to like this. And that's not just because this is like another adult epic high fantasy. Nature and personality of the main character. So in this book, we're following this man called, he's literally called Locke Lamora. I'm an idiot, okay. Leader of this band of thieves, the Gentlemen Bastards. And it's meant to be kind of heist-like, similar to, I guess, a Six of Crows kind of idea, except for the fact that these people are a little bit like, a little bit unhinged, a little bit rubbish at what they do. So I think it's meant to be quite humorous, but also has that clever heist idea. This world is inspired by Venice, so I feel like we're going to deliver on the vibes as well as the fun of it all. I think that could be really entertaining, but I also think he's like very morally grey, I mean, he's a thief, not a good person actually, but he also is probably very smart and, I don't know, has similarities to Kavoth, who's the main character of The Name of the Wind, if you didn't know already. The capricious colorful underworld, the ancient city of Camor, is the only home they've ever known, but now a clandestine war is threatening to tear it apart. Caught up in a murderous game, Locke and his friends are suddenly struggling just to stay alive. Excited. Again, we'll let you know how I find that. The one romance book we have here is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is the Works exclusive edition, so it has these obnoxious blue sprayed pages. I'm not obsessed with them, I won't lie to you, but I kind of don't care. A, it's a silly little romance book. B, I found it really cheap in the Works, so I can forgive the pages. You know, I could pay £10 for this, for it to have regular pages, or I could pay £5 with blue pages, so I don't care. The other thing is that Emily Henry is very hit or miss with me. 50% of the books I've owned from her, I have unhauled, which is great. Happy Place and You and Me on Vacation, but I don't like beach read, and I didn't really like book lovers either, so I unhauled both of those too. So this one might be kept because I love it, or I might eventually end up unhauling it and I can sell it to someone who is a big fan of the spray pages probably. Funny Story is a very interesting plot. Peter and Daphne are dating. Peter has an affair with his childhood best friend Petra. Peter then goes to Daphne and is like, I want to break it off because I want to marry Petra, essentially. Daphne's devastated, and so what she ends up doing is she ends up moving in with Miles, who's Petra's ex. So these two heartbroken people who've had their partners like cheat on them are now living together, and those are Daphne and Miles, the protagonists of this book. And it's about them going through like the heartbreak of the, you know, the experience they went through, losing the relationship, but also the hurt of the person you love treating you like that. And I think eventually, obviously, Daphne and Miles, as well as being each other's like emotional support person, they end up dating as well. So I don't know, fun, silly time. I like Emily Henry. I don't like Emily Henry. We'll see where this one sits. And the final book I have to mention here, I'm literally losing my voice, I've been chatting so long, is Circe by Madeline Miller. Another book I've wanted to read for years and years and years at this point. I have never got around to it. I've never got around to picking it up. I found this in the charity shop, perfect condition. Like, it looks unread. I mean, I'm sure it is read, but I think this person read it very neatly. This is a retelling of Circe's story, Circe from the Odyssey. I read the Odyssey in school. I actually studied it. I did a class. It was called Classical Civilization, and it was like for my GCSE, and I studied the Odyssey specifically. And I remember, again, it going over my head a little bit just because of the age I was and my brain not having fully developed. But yeah, this is Circe, like what her story is and why she's like that. A story of a very, very strong female character, beautiful and empowering. What mythology kind of like neglected to say about her. I want to go into this kind of blind, and again, of course, let you know my thoughts. All of these books should be mentioned across the next few months as I get to them and let you know how I find them. So there we have it. Those are the 15 books I have to mention in today's video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know you did. Subscribe if you'd like to stick around and see more videos from me. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you have, whether you got on well with them or not. Also, if you want to read any of these books, any that you want me to kind of prioritize, I'm happy to do it. Also, any that you want me to film a vlog on. I'm always looking for books that you guys would like to see in a vlog. I love doing vlogs that are just like my life. We structure it around me starting and finishing a book and telling my thoughts on that as well. So if there's any single one of these you want me to do that for, let me know and I'll do it instantly, I swear. Sending my love to you from here to wherever you may be in the world, and I'll see you so soon in a couple of days for another video. Bye bye.